in a couple seconds. Make sure there's no feedback as well, because I gotta turn off. We are live, guys. We are live on Facebook, which is good. All right, let me just minimize the screen. All right, guys. So good night, all to all of our listeners, all of our followers. I want to say blessed good night to everybody, and we hope that you had a good week. It is always a pleasure to see you, to connect with you on our DeBrief TV show. Tonight, we promise obviously to have we're going to bring you a very exciting show tonight. We're going to be discussing a number of things we've seen in the papers, we've heard in the papers what is going on, and we thought that we would bring it to you tonight to have a really good show. Oh, Simon and he right shirt. So we're going to bring you a very exciting show. What we wanted to do though is, as always, because we're techies really, and we are dealing with technology right now, we take the time out to just post. Guys, I posted the link in the chat, so you can share with your friends and families. Just give us 2 minutes. As one man said, a literal Bajan, 2 minutes to just share these links. And guys, you can go ahead and share the link with who you want. If you who are on that is watching us right now can take that time to share the link, that would be so appreciated. Right. Right, we're asking you to share the link, please, so that other people will know that we are on, and follow us, because as I said, we're going to have a very interesting show tonight, dealing with a number of topics, but also a very hot topic that I say hot in relative topic that a lot had been on a lot of people's heart, concerning what's going on with the GIS. I know there's a number of groups out there that are speaking out as it relates to what they've seen, what we've been hearing over the years as it pertains to this particular school. And we wanted to make sure that tonight we can talk about the whole situation and get your input on what your thoughts are surrounding the whole issue. And we have none other than Firhaana Bulbulia, who is here with us, and she's an advocate, a youth advocate, an advocate in many things, advocate for female, for women's rights, an advocate for children and children rights. She's also a part of the You Report Barbados, which I think is a new platform that allows persons to report certain things that are going on in and around them. But I would let her be the one, so I don't put my foot in my mouth, be the one to explain to you what the U report is, what it stands for, what is out there doing so far, what it has accomplished. But before doing that, I would like to obviously say good night to my host, Simon Aline. Simon Aline there in his red shirt. We have Simon, your red shirt. Is that a red shirt, Simon? We also have Kimar Stewart, who is with us as well. We have Jeremy Beckford, and we also have the Manny Small, who I do not think you guys are able to see. I don't think you guys are really able to see the Manny at this time, but the Manny is on, but you can't see his video. So let me just look on Facebook, make sure all of us are seen, all of us are heard, all of us are in the shot. And as I said, we just want to introduce Firhaana to speak about what she's here to do before we delve into the whole live conversation. So first, Firhaana, the show is yours. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time out to speak with us. How are you doing?
Thank you, Kimar, and thanks for having me on the show, and just welcome to all the viewers as well who are tuning in tonight. I think the conversation tonight is really going to center around the message of protect our girls, and obviously what's been happening in Barbados currently around the situation with the government industrial school and how young people are really mobilizing for change and sustainable change. So looking at reforming our laws, looking at how we deal with child rights, and holding persons accountable for injustices that have happened and continue to happen in light of circumstances that are evolving. So on behalf of the Protect Our Girls campaign, I think we're happy to be able to collaborate, be able to talk more about issues, and just create spaces for young people to just continue to agitate, but more importantly, think through these issues, because I think these issues are very deep rooted, and it will take a lot of discussion and a lot of effort to change how people think and perceive different things. So as I said, we're happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you for being here for sure. Any of you guys want to add anything before we add anything before we continue? Okay.
Great.
Hmm?
I started. I was on mute. Yes. Good
Yes.
afternoon. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in once more. Thank you, Firhaana, for joining us this Tuesday evening. Um, Very hot topic. To start the week. I think the topic is a very touchless topic in the sense that it deals with the issues surrounding a minor in Barbados, and I actually admiration for the support given to the situation from the youth, and particularly how Farhana and the different youth organizations are lobbying together for a specific cause. Not only for the organization's benefit, but for the benefit of a young child in society. So I definitely want to thank Farhana again and thank you for lobbying for such a good cause. And I hope that we can have a very thought-provoking conversation surrounding the issues this evening.
Yeah, definitely. Let's delve right into it, Farana. I know you guys have been doing a protest as it relates to the
I actually wanted
whole.
to say something.
Oh, well, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. When I saw this topic, well, sorry. Firstly, let me say good evening to all the viewers, especially those who tune in on a weekly basis to support the show. We want to thank you for your continued patronage. Kimar, this is about a year strong that we're going on.
Over.
Right, over a year strong, and we're still going. And as Kimar once said to me, this is one of the only true political talk shows on TV. For Hannah, I want to extend warm greetings to you for being here this evening. I also must extend greetings to my comrades Simon Aline and Damani Small, right? And also Kimar Stewart and yourself, Kimar Safri. With reference to this topic that we are dealing with this evening, this is a very serious issue. But to me, this topic goes even further than what is going on at the government industrial school. We are now living in a world where everything can be seen at the tip of your fingertips. And, a lot of injustices which have happened, which we seem to have normalized over a period of time, are now being brought to the fore. What I think is going to have to happen is that there's going to have to be a conversation where we're going to have to ask ourselves when the new norms will have to outdate the old norms. Because there must be a recognition that in as much as we want to move forward as a society, that we cannot just get up and throw everything that we came up with. And we must recognize that though there are some creaks in the system now, the system itself is not all that bad. So I look forward to this discussion this evening. I look forward to the discussion on gender equality because, and I'll just end by saying this. We look at the situation that is happening, that happened to the young lady, but there are a lot of young boys and men in this society who face sometimes even worse. And the sad reality is that the outcry that we got this week and last week for the young lady, we sadly don't get that same outcry for our young men. So I would like to center this, to gauge this conversation this evening on the whole issue of gender equality and inequality and what is really happening within Barbados, Caribbean, and the wider world.
All right, fair enough. Okay, so we can definitely dive in, but before we go to that end, with the whole thing of, let me go on this aspect of what is going on with the whole GIS situation, and the whole thing that we've seen happening with our with this particular young lady, and I've heard everybody weighing in on it. I've seen a lot of the groups come together there. I don't know if this brought you guys together closer, but for sure it has seen the groups amalgamating to deal with this topic. My thing is though, when I look at it, I see a lot of reaction from people. I see a lot of reaction from people rather than, in some cases, I see a lot of reaction. And I guess that's what we are mostly accustomed to, that reactive approach, rather than, some people calling for next, some people calling for this. And I find that, when we see it, we don't settle and understand what is the situation and how the whole thing, what's going on around this situation. And sometimes we glash out rather than look to deal with root causes and a number of things. And I see that your group is obviously coming together to challenge a number of decisions that were made by the minister, a number of decisions that were made by a number of also challenges with his statement. And sometimes the approach, sorry, I see that you guys take, I can understand, but when you read comments and when you read those, people are more lashing. This she should be, why she at the GIS, and why this and why that, and yes, comments for her, why she on the ground, why she naked, and sometimes you don't understand the whole scenario or why. I'm happy to see when groups like yours can stand and say, okay, this, and suggest that, rather than just lashing out. What have you guys been hearing? What have you guys been mobilizing so that the viewers can have a better understanding of this whole situation? Go ahead.
Okay, so I think I would start by saying that for us, I think in coming together, it was a part of our much larger mandates, I think, and some of the responsibility that we have within the positions that we hold presently. When the news did break on Sunday, the 14th, and we saw the news article in the paper, and rightfully so. And I think it's important. I mean, you speak about being reactive, but I think it's important that when persons read things like this, that it does horrify a nation. Because the moment that it stops horrifying and the moment that we stop being reactive to things like this, that means we have failed. Mm-hmm. So I think that's very important. That reaction is very important. And it's a normal part of any, it should be a normal part of how we come to deal with these situations. Because for a lot of people, they may not have known what happened within the walls of the government industrial school. And for a lot of persons, they've probably never heard of the government industrial school and what exactly it does. But what it allowed to happen by having that article placed in the newspaper was it allowed for heightened consciousness, not only on this particular institution, but how we've constructed our society to fail our most vulnerable people. And I think it allowed people to ask questions around our legal system, for example. It allowed persons to ask questions around how do we deal with persons who face mental health challenges, children who are struggling in school, what services are actually available. And then persons go to read and find facts and listen to experts and hear different opinions and ideas and solutions. And that is where critical thinking begins. And I think this is why moments like these are so powerful in sort of shifting conversations and shifting mindsets. So I think for us at the Protect Our Girls campaign, which I would say is a coalition of 4 youth led organizations, which is the Barbados National Youth Policy Committee, the CARICOM Youth Ambassadors Program, the Barbados Youth Development Council, and You Report Barbados. And we have pretty differing mandates, but all centering around amplifying the voices of young people and really translating what young people feel and think and want into policy. So I think it really fell within our mandate to provide a space for young people to speak on this issue, to begin to critically think, to pose questions that allow us to look deeper. And that is where we will then see change happen, not only at a systemic level, but at a social level, where we begin to reflect on our own behaviors and biases and opinions and shape those. So I think that in itself provided that moment to do so. But I do also want to say that from the very beginning, we ensure that we maintain our opinions based on facts. So we did as much research as possible, read as much reports as possible, ones that were written previously. We have gone to organizations that have either had programs at GIS or persons who would have been interacting with GIS in some way, and listen to what they have to say, listen to the perspectives, because we want to ensure that whatever information we give to young people and feedback to young people is credible. So we really grounded it in that, and using facts to back up what it is that we're saying and what it is that we're calling for. So it definitely was reactive, but but we wanted to ensure that in doing so, we looked at the longer term goal, and that is really to protect immediately our girls at GIS, but more in the long term, our young people who are most vulnerable.
Thank you for that. Any of you guys want to add anything
Yeah,
to what Firhaana is saying? Go ahead.
yeah,
Answer.
I got a comment, Kimar. I think it is more a question with regards to what is the standard, the international standard for youth reform programs or for organizations like the GIS. How internationally do they perform, or what's their role? Because I think one of the challenges or one of the issues we see coming out is that it is quite possible that GIS has to have a broader or a different mandate going forward into the 21st century. So my question to our guests this evening has to do with what is the standard, what is the international standard for these youth reform groups based on the research you would have done?
Okay, so what I think is important to know is that Barbados has signed on to the Conventions on the Rights of the Child. We've also signed on to a number of other treaties that demand that we treat our citizens in a way that is humane, that's free from violence, and that we protect our children and really safeguard them. However, I think we cannot remove that from the fact that Barbados came about from a very colonial society. We were built, the laws of Britain was transferred onto us without question. We had no say in that. So we have, when people say we have archaic structures, we have archaic structures, even sometimes predating independence and long before that continues to, and we operate in these structures. Now, some of the legal challenges that we then face is how then do we begin to make changes in practice that are not supported within our legal structures right now. So then what you find is that, okay, although persons may not agree with something, legally they have to uphold it. So really at the nut of it, one of the nuts of it is that we have to go back and look at the laws and look at how do we reshape the laws that are on the books. I think that is very important, because it's enough to say we have international standards and sign on to treaties, but at a practical level, we can't implement those fully unless we have an enabling enabling environment with regards to our laws.
Firhaana. Right. Okay. Hi. So how old was this young lady again? I can't remember. She was 16 years old?
14 years old.
14. All right. So the interesting thing about this is that at 14 years old, based on obviously the lax security within the government information school, the government industrial school, sorry, a staff member or whomever were able to get a phone and a camera within that institution where they could take a picture. Now, if the young lady was 2 or 3 years older, she would have been housed at Her Majesty's Prisons Dodds. And based on the track record of that institution, there is no possibility of getting a cell phone camera or anything in there. So whatever information you have would be what is released by the superintendent of prisons. I am making that point to you to say this. You just mentioned that we signed on to a lot of treaties and we have to uphold the rights of the child and all that. And I fully agree with that. The rights of the child, both male and female. But you know, to me, what's even more important? Instead of us focusing on the experience and the ordeal that the young lady went through within those few days or moments at the government industrial school, what we should be most outraged by is the fact that in the first place she ended up there. We should be outraged by the fact that we have many young men and women in Barbados whom are finding themselves going to either the government industrial school or Dodds for the young boys, right? And then more or less transitioning into Her Majesty's Prisons Dodds at a future date. That is what should outrage us. And for me, I want to say this. Instead of us, the problem that we have in this world and especially in this society is that when we focus so much on these, what I call these satellite issues that pop up every now and then, we forget that parents have to be parents. You are supposed to raise your child to such a standard that when the child gets older, even if there's an issue, that the child necessarily doesn't have to end up at either one of these penal institutions. Because the reality is that whilst we are outraged by this, all right, I would really like that this young lady turns her life around and she never has another brush with the law in Barbados again. However, statistics have shown us that a lot of persons who go through both of the government industrial schools and then pass to Her Majesty's Prisons Dodds, that it becomes like a revolving door. So whilst I empathize with what happened this week and that scenario, I believe the discussion really should center around how do we stop our young men and women from believing that that way of life and deviancy is a norm, and let them realize that that is something out of order and they need to keep away from that life.
I think, though, Jeremy, we're looking at this, I think, Farhan, I think that we're looking at this, you're looking at this in a twofold way, because there's actually two things that you're looking at. I mean, one, your statement, you were saying, okay, about the lack of security as it relates to how did this phone get passed to be able to take pictures. And then in one, and then in another voice, you're saying that how do we look at the person not repeating an offense? And that's two things rather than one. My thing on the phone is that, well, that may be an issue for some. I think that sometimes things like these have to happen. And it has to happen in order for people to realize that there's things happening behind the scene, or that there's things that are not right within an institution. And people may say, yes, the phone should have been, if it's a staff and the protocol within the organization said I can have my phone, well, then, I can have my phone. And if I see something and I think this is the only way, yes, you may be ridiculed for it. We're not saying that the indecency was right to expose the person, but if you could have, like, for example, we put up features by blocking private parts or by blocking facial, but show the problem. And I can't say that I have a problem with seeing the problem, because as an advocate, many times things like these is what is the hammer on the nail. Because when you speak, as I've heard tons of time, that there have been reports on top of reports that have been put out about the treatment of people at GIS. But years on top of years, nothing, or little to nothing rather, has been done. And yes, this come out, but the focus for me cannot be on the whether or not the phone was rightfully in the right place or shouldn't have been in place, but the fact that we have an issue at hand that beyond that phone is still a problem for everybody else that is there. Go ahead, Sam.
Hold on, Sam. You know what to me is an even bigger issue, Kimar, and I will mention it here. people are very quick nowadays to take out the phones and video. You get people, some boy running, some boy fighting, and all these things, right? This to me is a bigger issue. When you see a 3-year-old or 5-year-old being disrespectful or rude to their mother and father, you should go up to that mother and father and say, you know what? Let me help you. And video that too. Because you know what? Those children that we refuse to discipline at that young age are the ones who grow up most of the times to become the deviant ones in this age. That's all I was
Fair enough.
saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would like
Look,
to
Wait,
contribute.
hold on. Let me just see if Firhaana, you had a rebuttal before you guys take charge and anything. You want to rebut?
No, I do have a few things to say, but I'll let Kimar go first.
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead, Kimar. Then I will chime in. Go ahead.
yeah. Um, the issue for me is that we have a situation now where juvenile justice comes into the spotlight. So yes, everybody has seen the issue with the young lady, which is very sad, and the process and how it was handled. Some persons were like, okay, we understand, but then on the other hand, we had a difference in opinion as to how the situation was handled, right? Um, but if you look outside of the particular situation with the young lady, there's also the situation, as Jermaine said, with the young men in terms of the male side to the prison for young men, and then there's the issue of um the general prison population at large. And there's issues of complaints with them, even as far back as during one of the lockdowns when there was where in the prison we had voice notes and security being breached in terms of information coming out into mainstream society speaking about the conditions and the treatment and what's not in prison. So it brings a larger conversation now from the public as to how now are we treating our people, either young, either
Mhm.
old, when they go into these quote unquote penal institutions for which supposed to help rehabilitate or integrate
Mhm.
them back into society. So um my point of advocacy here is how now are we treating people when they are incarcerated, right? Incarcerated from the point where then you go to court, where then your picture is plastered all over the globe while you're still innocent. Then you're having to go through the embarrassment of court and then going to prison. These people
Right.
are still humans. These people are still humans, and they still
And
need to be
children.
treated with some level of dignity and respect in the handling of the situations. So if we just take a slight throwback to how the situation with the young lady was handled, um, as I said, some people believe it could have been treated differently in the time because we see situation because they don't want to enter um much political conversation into this point, but we see situations where the board spoke out, and then the next minute the board was gone, and then the next minute the minister was saying, "Well, oh, we going and attack the person who put out the film." What's not focusing on everything but the root cause of the problem. So,
Mhm.
um, like I said, my end point would be that we need to focus on the root cause of the problem, and the root cause of the problem for me starts in wider society before it even gets to the point of being incarcerated in a penal institution.
All right. Thanks, Kimar. Simon, you had a point?
Right. My real issue here, and I think it echoes back to what Jermaine was saying in a way, and also Farana. When we look at what is happening globally, and we look at where our institutions need to step up and get with the times, I think that's one of the main focuses, as well as law, which would be policy. So we have to decide, I guess, as a nation, where we're going as it relates to juvenile justice. Are we speaking totally about having reform? Are we still in this colonial mindset that a young person or any offender needs to be punished, and then hopefully over time we reform them? I think that with young people who may sometimes come afoul of the law or maybe involved in situations, we have to look at root causes. If you have a young lady that ends up at a juvenile correction facility, one must ask what were the challenges this young lady faced, or any young person, young man. Is it drug dependency? Is it mental and physical or sexual abuse? Is it a situation where this young person is abandoned? So when we look at those root causes now, is for the government as well as the NGOs to lobby. And I think more so the NGOs, because the NGOs seem to be more in touch with the real issues on the ground. And they can basically inform government with regards to policy and how to move the programs forward for reform of young people.
Of course, just let me read some comments just before we get to Firhaana's response. So I have Deborah. Good night to everyone that's coming on. They come in, the comments are coming fast and furious. I agree the conversation is necessary and it is part of the process. If at least it brings awareness to an issue, that is the beginning of finding a solution. And that was Deborah Elizabeth. Sancho Walker said, give our young people a platform to be heard and a voice. I'm having Renee Holder saying, Jermaine is speaking to the general issue, which have merit, but those are broad issues that will have to take various approach and years to resolve. Somebody's saying shut down GIS, re-establish and a different program. Somebody's talking here about the mental health and the psychologists of the institution, individuals, you know, people agreeing with Simon. They said, Bonita Medford said, gone are the days where we can say to a parent, let me help you with your child. You could have scrolled them unknowing to the parent before, and the child would have been further punished on arriving home to their children having children. Firhaana.
Yeah, so there are a few points that I wanted to touch on based on what was raised, but I want to first say that you know, Jermaine spoke to the fact he made comparisons to the prison, and I think it's important for us not to compare it to the prison, because government industrial school is not a prison. It is meant to be a reform school, because you cannot send juveniles to prison if they come into conflict with the law. And it is meant to rehabilitate. The challenge is that the concept of a government industrial school came out from the time of colonization, where young people who had no fixed place of abode, who were orphans, were picked up and placed in an industrial school so that, you know, there can be free labor, and they were made to work for free, right? So that's what we did with children who came into conflict with the law, or, you know, had no parents or whatnot. Coupled with that, Barbados and the history of Barbados was built on a very punitive system of justice and not a rehabilitative system of justice. So to think that we have miraculously become this rehabilitative and progressive nation in terms of dealing with mental health, in terms of dealing with juveniles, would be naive. So, you know, I want to start there. And that's where the concept of reform come in, not only reforming laws, but reforming concepts of punishment, rehabilitation, and what justice looks like in a society, in our sort of post-colonial society, right? So I think that's important. But the challenge also with what I had with some of Jermaine's comments was that they were very generalized. And the challenge that we find ourselves running into when we make these generalized comments and sort of these blanket assumptions is that it neglects the facts of the matter, and it also neglects the complexities involved in every single case. So if we look at the facts of the matter, the majority of girls at the government industrial school are there for non-violent crimes. In fact, they're there for wandering. Now, wandering is when you leave home and your parents or your guardians do not know where you are, and they call the police to go and retrieve you, and the police can charge you with wandering, and then you get sent to the government industrial school. I would also like to know that the majority of young people who are charged with wandering are girls. You tend not to see boys being charged with wandering. So although on the law books, both girls and boys can be charged for wandering, often than not, boys do not get charged for that and girls do. So in practice, it becomes a case where this particular law is particularly in practice discriminatory towards girls rather than boys. I know that questions will be raised, well, what about the boys? And the truth is there will be laws that are discriminatory more so to the boys as well. I don't think that, but in this particular case, I want to raise that point. So if we look at this particular case and the Shirley Chisholm Education Foundation on Instagram, they posted very specific details about the case. And I encourage everyone to go and look at those details of the case on Instagram, because it speaks to some of the learning disabilities that the girl would have had, as well as a number of other challenges that she would have faced, which caused the situation. So what you have is girls going into the industrial school for non-violent crimes, more often wandering, and also girls who may be rebelling because of sexual and physical violence, whether within the home or amongst family members. And I want to also say that, you know, the rate of physical and sexual violence, and also family violence, or the perpetuation of sexual violence by your family members onto children, is more than what the public thinks or sees it to be. So I would like to say that as well. So there are complexities in every single case. So if we make generalized statements that these are just bad behaved children, or children whose parents were not active in their lives, then we in ourselves are becoming responsible for failing our children, because we're not saying, listen, we need to look at this, look at the facts, and we need to look at the complexities of issues and then respond by planning and designing our programs accordingly, not based on generalizations.
Not to cut you, my question would be on that is, you talk about a number of issues, a number of social issues, a number of family dysfunctions that all could contribute to why this particular child may be in the system. Now, from your research, and you said you guys are backed up by facts, have you guys found that to be that those issues that the child may come in with, other than the wandering, because that's the cause of why they're there, are those issues being addressed while they're at the institution? Are those family issues being addressed, or are those abuse being addressed while they're there, to say that if you're talking about reform or you're talking about rehabilitation of these individuals, that they get the best service while they're there, that would, if I could use Jermaine's word loosely, that they don't have to then repeat the system? Have you found that?
You know, we've skimmed through lots of open letters and statements by a number of civil society organizations. One that particularly stuck out to me was one issued by Jabez House.
Yeah, Ms. Rice.
Ms. Rice,
yeah, and for those who have not read it, I encourage you to go to their Facebook page and read the statement. I mean, a lot of the statements were concerning, greatly so, but this one stuck out to me because if anyone knows Jabez House, you know that they work with primarily sex workers to provide alternative, entrepreneurial skills and so on. And they were running a program in GIS for 2 years. And they saw a number of injustices and abuses occurring. And these are when you work in women's rights or child rights spaces, this is sort of Barbados's best kept secret, because we knew, persons know, there are persons throughout Barbados who know what is happening. And what really struck out to me about Jabez's House statement is she said that when they did choose to raise the issue, their program was automatically cut, and they weren't allowed to go back in there. So that really begs the question of what type of service are young people getting if these type of things are happening. And I want to say, a number of persons have also come on the other side and said they've had wonderful experiences. And I think we validate persons' experience, but I think it's also very relative. So, if someone is coming out and they're saying, I had a wonderful experience at GIS because, they fed me very well and I got good food, then I would have to ask, what was your situation before? What type of meals were you getting in your home? Were you getting meals? Were you being fed? So that's relative. But I think that in a school of that sense, we don't have room for error. There can't be situations of abuse. There can't be situations of injustice. That is the
I
nature
want to
of
ask
the
you,
school. They just
I
can't
want to ask
happen.
you,
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question. Um, I know that the stigma associated with going to the GIS.
Sorry, Kimar.
Yeah,
If you don't mind, I don't want to cross you. I just want to just add a few comments here, just comments that are coming in, and then you can take back over. Just from a number of persons that are commenting on the page. I had one from from sorry, I just bear with me. I'm just trying to get back to that page because I had a number of people that were commenting on it. All right,
mhm.
Kimar, go ahead. I'm losing some comments here. Go ahead. I'll read them after. Sorry. Go ahead.
I found some interest in the statement that the wandering law tends to affect mostly girls. Um, because when you look at the situation at home, if you mentioned about abuse, physical or sexual, if you like, and the young kids running away from home to get away from that and end up what the law would define as wandering. But essentially, what they're looking for is a safe space or a safe organization that could respond to the challenges that they are having in the household. Right? So when you made the point about Jabez House, I could see where an organization like Jabez House is responding to the social challenges that arise to it, right? Much like what Kimar Safri does in terms of the homeless. There's homelessness, and he provided a solution to help change the situation of homelessness, not just providing a meal, but providing programs for education and different networks and linkages to be able to help the process of reform from being a homeless person to transition back into society. So my question for you is twofold. What process is or how is your report of itself responding to the challenges that our young people would face? You could use the situation with the younger as an explanation, if need be, and was the recommendation of a young lady. I can't recall the full name, but I saw that the program was recommended a young lady for a post on the board, saying that there were no young people placed placed on the board, and you were having some challenges with some of the appointments. So could you give us some insights into that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. You report Barbados is a platform where young persons can speak out on issues that are important to us. And usually we would do this through a function of polls. So it is a system that is managed, a lot of technical requirements behind the scenes, but essentially young persons would sign up to become U reporters, and the polls would come directly to their WhatsApp, to their Facebook inboxes, to their Twitter inboxes on a variety of topics. And they then feed into these, feed their opinions, their ideas, based on the questions that are posed. And then this is then fed back to policymakers, to be able, or civil society organizations, youth organizations, development organizations, to be able to make more informed decisions on their programs that in fact impact young people. So within that mandate, you report for us, the report steering committee saw this as a responsibility to provide that space for young people to really talk about these issues and, really begin to reimagine how we want Barbados to be and how we want Barbados to work for us. So, in terms of responding to some of these challenges, we've made our position very clear through our joint statements. But additionally, it's about continuing the conversation because, as we said, this is one isolated case, but is reflective of much deeper systemic issues. So how then do we link the conversation to some of these other issues? And there's really a gap that exists for that to happen. So we're really hoping to be able to fill that gap through this tool that we have. I think your second question was around the recommendation of Krista Solane. So I think we at the campaign, we amplify the messages that young people are already sharing. So as you can see, our joint statement came out Monday morning. The press conference was Saturday. You know, between Saturday and Monday morning, we were really looking to see how young people were responding to, you know, the press conference. What were their concerns? You know, what were their challenges? And one of the biggest challenges so there were several challenges that came out. The first challenge was the mistrust, so the lack of trust in the investigation. You know, after seeing all of these accounts of abuse and injustice, you know, we want to know a little bit more about the investigation. We want some transparency there. You know, how was it run? What was the findings in very specific details? Let us know about that. Secondly, you know, the board, there were concerns that were being shared by young people across the board with the newly appointed board, and mainly because of some social media messages that were posted by some of the board members that gave the feeling that, you know, when they do make decisions while sitting on this board, they wouldn't be open-minded. They're already coming in with a preconceived idea about what justice looks like.
This is members of the current board or
The
the
new board.
previous board?
The newly appointed board. Yeah.
Okay.
So there were concerns being shared there around some of the sentiments that have been shared by some of these board members online that made a lot, you know, our audience feel that, you know, they would not be, that would influence their decision making while on the board. So, and also there was a questioning around, okay, what makes these persons qualified? But more importantly, I think the conversation then turned to what does a qualified person look like? To run a board such as the government industrial school, what does that person look like ideally? What qualifications do we want as young people to help our counterparts who may be experiencing challenges? So, you know, we did some brainstorming, we got some opinions. One of the things that is very important is youth-centered policy, practice, and personnel. So that means that you engage young people at every single step of the process, that young people are at the decision-making table, especially on issues that impact us. And what we have is a really, what we have
But why
is
did
a,
you recommend the particular
right.
person? But why did you recommend for Hannah, or why did you choose the young lady in question?
Yeah. So we did look at the qualifications, and she came recommended as well from some young people. And we went through her CV, we got her CV, and we went through it. We spoke to her. You know, we thought we do have. You know, we came up with a variety of names of persons who we think would be good, but we really wanted to have one strong option that we can put out to the public and say, look, this is what a qualified person looks like. This is who the young people think would be a strong recommendation. And we looked at her CV and we pulled out the parts that really were, you know, her CV is more extensive than what we put out there. But I think what we did put out is a testament to just how experienced and the diverse experience that she can bring to the position and bring to the board. Not only that, she falls within that category of young people, and she's worked with young people for over 14 years. So I think that was a very, it was a strong recommendation, and we haven't seen any pushback. In fact, across social media, and what we're hearing is that that is a strong candidate, and it's important to consider that.
Okay, Farida, my question would be, even though, I mean, I know Krista Saab, Solange, her name changed because I think she was married recently as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know Krista, I know her background, I know her working in the youth, with the youth for a while, and I think that I would echo that she is a perfect fit to sit on the board. Many times, my challenges as even as an NGO leader, and not only within the rights of the Barbados Alliance to End Homelessness, but also NGO leader within the rights of the national NGO network, which I would have formed with some other NGO colleagues. I find that many times when it comes to boards, and I sit on a few, so permit me to say that the picks are not necessarily always about the right fit. And I think that that's one of the biggest challenge. You're on a board for an organization that you have no qualification in, that you have no understanding in, and you're sometimes having to now figure out this organization does. You probably never heard it. Don't get me wrong, I always think that as well, that it is okay for you to be on board to learn new things and to learn if you can bring, and you can, if you're known to be a person that bring added value wherever you go, then for me, you being on a board is okay. But where are, like, I can show you an example with my organization. I never chose big name people. It had to be a psychologist, it had to be a lawyer, it had to be somebody in accounts, it had to be somebody that actually had a love and a passion for what I do. Somebody that could give me advice on whether or not I think PR, something that brings value to that organization. I think too much times that NGOs groups are left out of decisions. So for example, Barbados has this thing that on most, if not all board, there is a somebody from the ecclesiastical area, whether it be a priest, whether it be a reverend, whether it be whatever. And they also have somebody from the union. Especially if it's a school board, they always have a representative from Situ Sab or whatever. And then there's always a ministry rep. I find that there's not a NGO rep. You understand? Or if you're talking about organizations such as the industrial school, there's not a youth rep. And you are never given those opportunity or those voice as an organization, as somebody that for Krista and yourself and all of you guys, I see Shadi Jamal here commented, that have been touching the lives of young people for decades. Even though we are, young people, we have engaged in our profession for years. And I find that that is something that needs to be addressed. And I would hope that the recommendation that you guys would have made for her to be on the board is considered, because yes, I would have seen some of the current board members and I would have questioned, but what does this person do? What does this person bring? Because at the end of the day, I'm saying you're removing one board. Let's hope that you're bringing a board with serious substance, especially when you're talking about such a challenge thing. I was also reading earlier, I think the lady that is the child rights advocate, I forget her name is slipping me.
Charlie Ross?
Pardon me? Faye, I think
Ross?
Faye.
Faith Marshall has, yeah,
yes.
Faith Marshall.
And she too was bringing up things that I thought that based on the comment made by the minister, she would have been one that would be working with the government. But she's slamming certain decisions made by the minister or made there in terms of having, if you can flip over here now, having people being sent home. Because for one, for me, I'm not too comfortable with the principal still being there. I'm not too comfortable with the board being there, with the staff being there. If those are the person that you're complaining about for a period of time, I think that we need to really look at it, reshape it. And I know these things take time, so I'm not a person that rushy. And the minister have to be given the lead way to be able to do what he said he needs to do. But at the same time, I think that we need to look at something to replace that. Well, he does that, or well, the ministry does that, because he can only look at it from a policy level to be able to deal with the situation, or rather arrest the situation that we face. So I really hope you guys get it. But what is your take in terms of that? And in terms of that, and we can then read some comments from what the persons online are saying. Sorry, just let me go here. I know Shade, you had a comment earlier. I would just read that comment for you. Then I'll give Firhaana the floor to reply. Shade said these children are more often than not victims. The core issue is the current system criminalized victims. Shauna Rollins, she's replying to somebody. Sanchez said, I would love to work with Firhaana and assist her however I can. I'm a behavioral specialist, analyst, sorry, and a mental health therapist. And honestly, I am disturbed about this. I'm just going on.
That's good.
Just going on here to see where am I correct? Sorry, am I correct? I'm sure I heard that that no more young ladies will be going to GIS. I don't think that that's the case. Um, let me see. Some people are having conversation with themselves. So I'm not trying to read those. Shauna Rollins are saying there must be a place for constructive criticism in any organization. That is how it evolves um, and grows. I'm getting another comment here from Shadi. So you just bear with us. It is also important to note that there is an establishment between local prostitution and girls who pass through GIS over 50% by some report. And GBS House is an organization that was established to support and rehabilitate sex workers. Was allegedly prevented from reaching the girls before that becomes their life, presumably because they saw something and chose to say something. This is very concerning. I am Renee Holder is saying if Marsha Harris and Adrian Cummings are advisors, which is a welcome appointment, but they aren't the board. Okay. John, just let me get you in here. John Herbert, it's an excellent discussion, guys. This is from the top of the this sorry, this is from the top of the top drawer. If there is one thing the issue on the examination has uncovered is how boards and other appointments is in government service is done. Good night to all. The discussion tonight extremely serious and needed for our future generation. There is plenty of work for the younger parents. And I'll just leave that one there because it's pretty long. But yeah, for the other part that I must say is I've worked with Shamel and worked with JBS House. We collaborate, we work together, great organization. And I know that Shamel Heart is for not just sex workers, but also these youngers. And I must agree with Shadi. There's a correlation between the two. And this, they're being shut out. And Shimon spoke to me a while back and told me about this shut out because they say something, because they saw something and say something. And I think that, and that is why I said tonight that the focus cannot be about this moment of picture, but is that we've uncovered something in Barbados that is a problem. And I will go as far as thank God for the opportunity through this photo to be able to highlight. And I must say that you guys championing this, but it's also championing it from the point that it does not repeat. That history does not repeat itself, whether it be at JS boys, whether it be at JS girls, whether it has any youth institution in Barbados that's dealing with the youth, that it is arrested, and that young people from your group back down to Shade, I know she have a new appointed role, have a say in these matters, and is a say that is respected, not a say that we just want to be there because we want CV moments, but we are contributors. We are the young people. We are who on the ground. We are who they're connecting with. We have a contribution as young people, and our voice must be heard. And I hope that you guys continuously champion that until you get Krista on the board or somebody, and the minister takes serious look at what you guys are proposing to them. I've seen a number of persons propose. I've seen a number of organizations propose, but I think that sometimes the best thing to do is add the voices, add the experience, add the people that has a heart and a passion for people. And I think that I tell you, growth in this country will be beyond what people could think. Go over to you, Firhaana.
Can I say something?
Just let me get Firhaana first, and then you can come in, Jeremy, because she was waiting.
Okay, no problem.
Go ahead, Firhaana.
No, just to say that a big shout out to Shadi. I mean, she's 9 months pregnant and she's fueling this campaign, working day and night. So just to say shout out to her.
I've worked with her before, so I don't know she's a pregnancy.
She's a powerhouse. She's a powerhouse.
For sure. Big up to you, Shadi. Yeah. You want to say something, Jeremy? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, hold on, Jeremy. Hold on. Sorry. This is just a question. We haven't had any questions from the comments. For tonight, we do not have comments and questions. Somebody else, can I ask a question? Are any group or one to sorry, can I ask a question? Are there any groups or one-to-one therapy done with these children at GIS? I don't know if you can answer that, Firhaana. If there any one-to-one counseling at the GIS? I'm not familiar with the insights.
All I can go off of for this particular is based on what the acting principal said during the press conference, which is that they do receive counseling.
But my challenge is if you're cutting out serious programs like Shamel Rice, Jabez House, and we are not hearing what are these replacement programs or what are who are these counselors. I'm not saying you want to divulge the entire business of the organization, but it might be quite worrisome for me as well. If you're saying to me, you have children in there, but yet they may be still exhibiting quote unquote behaviors that they're in a health facility, but yet they're not being helped. That may be worrisome for me.
Safri, I believe that is a school is meant to be a school at the end of the day. So there are teachers on stream to help the girls inside. But I know that some of the girls do educational programs.
But no, I'm not talking about
And
educational program. I'm talking about the
I
rehabilitation of
understand.
the reform. That
I
I hear the
understand.
principal said that they do CXCs and what's not. I'm not
Yeah,
taking away, but I'm talking about
Right.
rehabilitative, reintegrative programs.
Okay. I can't speak to the fact that there are concrete programs in place, but I was looking at it from the aspect of education and providing some level of reform, not the full metric that
Mm,
we may require in this day and age, but
mm,
there is some level of reform for the child to come back in. But I wanted to touch on a point not far removed from this one about the juvenile liaison scheme. This is for school children who usually misbehave and what's not. Um, there's a program like a counseling program or what's not. So instead of you come to school for 9 in the morning, you will report to the institution say at 9 in the morning, and then they will counsel you or provide whatever information they need, and then you will come to school say like 2 hours or 3 hours late, right? And and that's one of the programs they use for a case coming from school before you get to the end, the nickel school, right? But if it's a situation where the case is coming direct from the household where the police is involved, then I think that the person or the case is treated different. It's treated now as an act of deviancy or some type of outlandish act that the child performed in the household that it would have left. So somebody made a point about criminalizing people. I think the perception is that once you run away, once the police receive a complaint that a child runs away, the police
deviant.
first interpretation is that, oh, you being hardish or you being deviant, we coming for you and carry you in jail or dogs or whatever, right? And hardly ever these persons are trained to hear the stories of the child. You hear the story of the child when it gets to the point that they land on naked in the cell. Then we want to hear the story. But in the first place, when you are engaged from that of the police and the child, I'm not saying that all police are bad, but more than likely, police in their interaction with young children will not take the time to necessarily find out or
The
provide
root
some
causes.
sort of recommendation
Just to
or
correct you there, Kimar. I know just from my experience with the police and just from my experience with the police, whenever they collect a children, whenever the children is involved, it actually triggers a number of protocols, which means that you have to bring in somebody from child care board. If you see in the paper today, I put it out on my Beijing alert. There is there's a little boy that's missing, and
Missing.
obviously, if he's found, sorry, that person that triggers that entire protocol. That
System.
not even the police just get involved, but there have to be parents, there have to be child care board. So there's a number of things that
yeah,
triggers.
yes,
So I won't even bring the
I
police into it to single them
but
out per se.
I'm not disagreeing with the overall point. Yes, that there are protocols, but I looking at the perception of a
Or how
child
they're
who has
criminalized.
quote unquote, yeah, or how could they quote unquote wandered off from home and then from you wandering off from home, you become a criminal just because the police would have received a phone call saying that you would have wandered from home or they would have found you somewhere. So, like I said, I'm not labeling all police as bad, but I am saying that when they look to engage in the child from a position of, I suspect you to be deviant, as opposed to digging to the, not police are not trained counselors, but I believe that if you as a police officer take a quote unquote wandering child, um, there are other services that the government service would provide for counseling or some sort of sub program or what's not that you could recommend, as opposed to trying to send a child to hard dogs,
But that's the
right?
magistrate. That's the magistrate. That would be the magistrate, not the police.
I want to make a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, okay. So, Farhana, I'm just going to say to you
Firhaana.
that I am going to be very general again, because whilst I understand the gravity of this situation and I understand the impact that it has had upon you and your organization that you represent and other organizations, such like, listening to the guys here, I heard you making reference to the fact that you want to get the young lady Krista on the board and you want a voice at the table. Now, from my limited experience, there's one thing that I have noticed and I've learned in Barbados. Even if you get Krista on the board at the GIS, right, and she's not the chairman or the deputy chairman, I can tell you without a doubt that whilst she might be able to create a stir because of board protocols, if anything happens and she has to come to the media, she also will be removed from the board, right? But for me, the bigger picture for me is not to get a young person on a board because in this current administration, we have a lot of young people who are serving on boards throughout government agencies in Barbados. Where we need to get our young people if we want to really make meaningful change, we have to get our young people at the policy table, in the cabinet, in the parliament. Now, I'm going to say this to you. A board is just the creature of a minister. The ministry sends an edict to the board and says, this is the programs that we want y'all to focus on, and the board has to work within that ambit. The reality is that if our young people can get to the cabinet table, they can get in the parliament. Even if you look at consultants within government of Barbados right now, we have a myriad of consultants. We have persons consulting in finance, social services, this, that, and that, and every other. And the reality is that those persons inevitably and their recommendations are going to be taken way more seriously than what any board has to say. So I am saying to you that I like the energy that your organizations have. And I would say to you to channel that energy into political power. You can join, you have a choice. You can join one of the two established political parties in Barbados, and by
RPDP.
Barbados Labour Party and the Democratic Labour Party. The other parties will fizzle out very soon. So you can join one of those parties and you can make a difference. You see, like how my friend here, Kimar Stewart, he jumped on the political scene. And people in Barbados have to know this.
And what about Simon?
Simon
He's your man.
doubled the age of Kimar. So no offense to you, Simon, but there's Kimar moment to shine. Right? But the reality is though, the reality.
I didn't know that Kimar is 19.
He looked like 19. But even if he looks like 19, Kimar offers his opinion, right, on
Right.
everything economics and finance in Barbados. And regardless of if you agree or disagree, you have to listen. All right.
He has an opinion.
And the reality is that at some point, persons in Barbados will say, we look forward to seeing a Kimar Stewart at the policy table, because they know what he's talking about. And they believe that if he gets a chance to get at the table, that he will implement some of the changes that he speak about. So Firhaana, right, and all of the other youth advocates in Barbados,
I did.
I want to see them get to the policy table, because the reality is that if they get at the policy table and say, listen, this is what we are here for, they will no longer have to be the creature of a minister. The board will have to be a creature of them. And the change that is really needed, it will not be a change that will be filtered down. And by the time it starts out as mobby, and by the time it gets to you, it's sugar water. It will be the real mobby, the real syrup, and it will come down because, no, it is the truth.
That's right. I want to say something as well.
Right. We often, like, if you look at the Ministry of Social Care, look at the consultancy.
People's Empowerment Elderly Affairs, sir.
Right, sorry, right. So in empowerment and elderly affairs, look at the consultants that we have in there. We have Mr. Prescott, who is now a consultant on reparations. Right? Now, the reality
that's
is
at the Prime Minister's office. Sir.
No, I know it's at the Prime Minister's office, but this.
But you want to for Hannah down the whole political.
No, I'm not taking her down the whole. I'm not taking her down the whole political line. But I want to say this to you, and I'm glad that Kimar referenced that that consultancy is at the Prime Minister's office. For me, the issue of GIS and the what is the abuse, because that is what I'm going to call it, the abuse that is happening to these young girls and young boys in Barbados, because I will never only say with the women and forget with men, right? It is an issue that needs the intervention of the Prime Minister of Barbados, one, and even if you have to establish a post under the office of the Prime Minister, and that person reports to the Prime Minister what, one, they see to be the problems, number two, the working solutions, and then the Prime Minister establishes a subcommittee, a cabinet. Because just as how we establish subcommittees for COVID, and we establish subcommittee for finance, these issues are just as important. These are issues relating to our young men and women. These are the future of Barbados, whether we like it or not. Because, let me say this, these young girls that in the government industrial school and the young boys that in Dodds, or even the male and female prisoners at Her Majesty's Prisons Dodds, when they are released from those institutions, politicians will come to them and expect a vote. So if you expect a vote and you expect them to be contributing citizens in this society, you have to treat their issues and things which affect that subset with just as much urgency as you treat to every other issue in Barbados.
All right, thank you. Before Firhaana reply, just let me get in these comments. I'd like to read the good, the bad, and the ugly. These pressure groups only like to bring down the pressure on government when there's an incident. Once the smoke clears, you will see. Hold on. Once the smoke clears, you all go back in your rocking chair. What is needed is persistent pressure on government for reform. Somebody unfortunately agreed with Jermaine. Let me see. Somebody here is saying the board for GIS is an advisory. It is absolutely necessary to have qualified persons in place. The broader issue, Jermaine, is speaking of its future issue and cannot be changed in an instance. Sorry. So, Firhaana, you want to reply before Simon?
No, I'll let Simon go first.
Simon?
Oh, well, basically, what is coming out for this discussion tonight?
Simon, sorry. I don't mean to cross you guys. I just want to let the persons know that are viewing, just in case anybody was tracking, the little boy that was missing is traced. So he is found, seems to be in good health and everything. So I just wanted to bring that to our viewers. Go ahead, Simon.
That's really good. So what I was saying is that the issues coming out based on reforming the whole system is consultation. Because before you can design a program, before you can design a system, you have to understand the stakeholders in it. And you must have consultation with young people and of course with the experts to design a system or design a program that is up to the time. Because as Firhaana would have said earlier, a lot of our systems we inherited colonially from the British that at this time now would not be as effective or even as important in our society, how we function. So consultation is important. And then the next thing, going back to what I've been hearing the same Jermaine and even Kimar said, we need the right fit. So after you having your consultation, it's only after consultation you can get the right fit and the right program to work to assist these young people. And then to further down the road, what you're looking at is the whole issue of reform. I was watching a series on Netflix dealing with prison, being locked up in prison. And this guy, he goes around the world and he spends 2 weeks in prisons. And what was really interesting is the European view. I think he was in a prison in Sweden or Switzerland, where it is almost like an outpatient facility, where you are not treated as a prisoner as you go in. Now, if your behavior, so you start with all the privileges, all right? You have TV, you can go and actually use a communal room to cook, to wash, whatever. But based on your behavior, if you behave badly or you come in conflict with the system, your privileges are taken away. And as you reform to the system, your privileges are reinstated. So I mean, there's a lot of research, going back to what Firhaana said, there's a lot of work that's been done, but it's just to find the right fit for Barbados. And I think that will be the challenge in the next 5 to 10 years as we take the country forward. How are we going to become a model? Because it's all about legacy, it's all about Barbados being up in the forefront in the Caribbean, because people look up to us. What will be our model for juvenile reform in 2025 and beyond?
If I may add, Simon, I like somewhat of what Jermaine said, and only from this point, that I would like to see the young people at policy making decision. I don't necessarily agree though that all boards are the creature of the government or the minister that send you, because I sit on board and I'm certainly no creature of the government. What you go with the government policy or what the government directive is, and where the minister says he want or she wants the ministry to go, and that you can't challenge that from a board level, because that's a policy that you're instituting or continuing on in that institution for the ministry. Now the other part that I take problem with though, Jermaine, is that many times everybody call for the prime minister, the prime minister, the prime minister, the prime minister. If a prime minister has a competent minister, the cabinet of Barbados makes decisions that then the minister becomes the creature then of that cabinet decision, and then forward on in policy, or what if they make it in cabinet or whether they make it in parliament. I find too often times that we think that the solutions to fixing the country always lies in the prime minister. The decision of fixing the country lies within the individuals themselves. Us that are the professionals, us that are the advocates. Hold on, let me finish. Let me make my point. Us that have been on the ground, that needs to be placed strategically. And that's why I support what Firhaana and the group is doing, because the people, once you have competent people as a leader, a lot is not rest on your shoulders, so much so because the people that you position can easily take for the vision of the leader. We call in for Mayor Motley to be the cook, the wash, the cleaner, the everything, and then you end of the day, she's going to neglect all of what her role as a prime minister is supposed to be, which yes, it encompasses all of us, to take on the role of her ministers, which she's already appointed to do such. All you have, but I'm saying with that, add the right people to the boards, give the people the powers to help shape policy, the correct people, and you can see change in this country, that the prime minister herself could focus on her portfolio rather than focusing on the portfolio of those that she appointed. Just let me get Firhaana first.
All right, let me just respond quickly. I just want to make a correction to what you just said, because I specifically made the point that we have different advisors for different things. I just made a point that we could have a person sitting in the office of the prime minister advising not just on GIS, but on youth justice policy initiatives, right? And
there's a national committee for youth policy, if I'm correct, Firhaana. There's a committee that's set up to deal with that. So there is that.
No, I understand, but I also
you don't need to be in the prime minister's office.
Right. No, hold on. And I also made reference to the point that the prime minister can establish a subcommittee of cabinet, and that subcommittee could specifically deal with that issue as well. So the prime minister doesn't have to be involved.
The next thing we need is a subway. You can let me know.
Firhaana has to say about it.
Let me hear you. Sorry.
No, I mean, I definitely hear what Jermaine is saying with regards to committees, and I hear what you're saying to Kimara around having too many committees. I think it's time for action. But I
Correct.
want to draw back in on the comment that was placed on the live, and that's around, you know, groups using this the fire's hot and then kind of burning out. And I want to say that this is a dismantling of a system, a very large, deep-rooted system.
Yes.
And to simply say, you know, persons are speaking out because the fire is hot, I think signifies that not much homework has been done. And I say that because a lot of the young persons who are speaking out are working in communities, have been involved in volunteerism for a very long time, and are using their platforms to advocate for change, which is why within a very short space of time, we were able to mobilize over 90 youth organizations, youth businesses to come together and speak to this, because young people are working in spaces. And then I also wanted to say that I know a lot of the conversation has centered around what hasn't been done and what the concerns are. But, you know, I think where the minister is at right now is a hard place to be in. And I would not want to fill those shoes, because that is a very big burden, I think. Well, not burden, big responsibility. And there were some positives, and we did highlight that in our statement, things that we were absolutely pleased with and pleased to see. And the first was with immediate effect, you know, the not the process of solitary confinement being placed off the books with immediate effect. And that was very important to us, as a movement. And that came about quite quickly. So we are happy to see that. But of course, there's still progress to be made in that area. So I wanted to highlight that as well.
Thank
Yeah,
you for
well,
go ahead, Kima.
right. Yeah, well, for Hannah, keep doing what you're doing. Just like I said, appreciating the activism coming up from the youth. Um,
Yeah, man.
we need to take it a lot further, in terms of being activists for a wider set of issues. We have young people in this country who have the education, have the knowledge, have the skill, and they just train, and nobody's really um, listening to what the young people have to say. I think for too long we treated young people in Barbados like tokens, give them maybe a little board pit here to, call it
True.
like that was shut them up, or give them a little inner job that they will stop or give up the fight and put aside the causes, right? And I actually think that this you report and the coming together of young people is the direction that we need to go, because we need to be at the table. We need seats at the table. We actually need to occupy the table, because in 2021, where the world is empowering its young people and
And women.
giving them, in particular the women, and helping them to get forward. Here we are in Barbados, in the Caribbean, still doing things by via donkey speed, right? So I think that this particular cause in championing the recommendation of the young lady to the board should be a ballooning effect through the wider society, through all political parties, through all organizations, via educational, recreational, religious, all across all organizations for young people be educated or have to have the skill for us to try to lobby to get them in positions so that our particular issues are on the agenda, and not waiting for any
Agreed.
minister or anybody to wake up and feel like listening to you today. So I think
But
that
there's
I,
and
I
to
got a
Kimar,
comment.
sorry, go ahead, Simon. Sorry.
Sorry. Right. I wanted to ask or to suggest something to Firhaana to get her response. To me, it is clear that the less things that we allow government to manage may actually reduce the burden tax-wise in terms of resources and so on. and also in terms of getting things done effectively. Now we have a lot of civil society organizations with trained persons. We have CSOs that have social workers, that have psychiatrists, psychologists, and behavioral specialists, and so on. I am thinking that there are a lot of elements after there's the consultation, and then you decide what you want for your juvenile reform system. I think that there are a lot of opportunities, just like Shamel Rice. She would have had a program or a consultancy working within the GIS. I think that there is a lot of room for those qualified and specific civil society organizations to actually work and conduct programs that they can be assessed on. I mean, you get a contract or whatever, or you have a project to do as the CSO within government. These are your deliverables, and then you are monitored. I think that the CSO approach would help to alleviate a lot of the stress, because clearly government is not necessarily able, a lot of the, some of the government departments and so on are not able to adjust and adapt to the time and become more fluid to address the needs of people. So I'm thinking that there's a lot more work, and there's an opportunity now, if the minister is paying attention and he's working with his team, to give CSOs a greater role in assisting the duties or the functions of GIS.
Firhaana, if I may, before you comment on that, I think that's a brilliant suggestion, a suggestion that we've surely lobbied government for as an NGO leader myself.
Sorry, what are CSOs?
Civil service or
civil society organizations.
Okay, yes,
and
sorry.
One of the things that they hinted at was that the fact that we need to use the organization. We are the ground rules. And you said it correctly, Simon. The more work that you allow us to do, the less pressure, the less cost. Because when the government needs $2 million to run a program, give me half of that, Gordy, and they're telling you, Barbados clean up of all the homeless. And give us the policy then that surrounds that as well.
Framework.
Listen to what the framework, the policy framework, and put that into legislation, whatever, and you can see things happening in Barbados in a quicker turnaround time than somebody in an office, somebody in a consultancy position that has no idea about what it is that they're doing. And I've lobbied for that for years. I just had a national NGO network conference just last year, and that was the suggestion. Even for us here at the homeless, we said, listen, the welfare has a fee, a rental fee, for a rental money for rent, to pay rents. And we are a shelter, we are operating, right now I'm at the shelter, and people are coming into the shelter now, and people want to stay at the shelter for a longer time. They said to the government, well, if you pay, let's say, for example, $800 a month to somebody to rent a room, and they're here, and you could give me half of that, and then at that room, they're not getting any food, they're not getting any counseling, they're not getting, but with this 400, they can provide 15 different services.
Wow.
You were able to do much, and the government saves an extra $400 every month.
Well,
I mean, it's still negotiation, but I'm just showing things like these. If I have a counseling service and I'm offering a counseling service and the funding is already there because it's allocated to the ministry, why can't NGOs tap into those type of funding? You would see Barbados turn around time in a short time, but I want to hear Firhaana as well on it.
No, I fully agree with Simon. I think that is a good model to follow. In other parts of the world, you know, civil societies operate like businesses. You know, they have services that they offer. They're paid not just by governments, but, you know, corporations to you know, implement a service within a community. And I think that's good, because with the model of how NGOs work in the Caribbean, and particularly in Barbados, is through volunteerism. And that is a challenge in itself, because, you know, we work full-time jobs and then, you know, do our community work on the side, push things to the side. But if you flip that, I think you would get a lot further, because we do bring a added advantage, and I think a comparative advantage actually, that means that we don't have to go through levels of bureaucracy to get things done. Correct. We know exactly where the needs are, and we know exactly who needs what within our communities, and we can roll out programs quite quickly and seamlessly, and perhaps more effectively as well, because because of how our structures allow us to do certain things in certain ways. So that's a good model. But again, it's about shifting the mindset of how we provide social services and access to social services and those type of things.
Firhaana, would you like it if we could just have a government where a minister comes out and announce, you know what, we're doing this, right? And because of the minister saying that civil servants who like to be tied up in bureaucracy are forced to move all of the bureaucratic challenges out of the way and impediments and get done what the minister actually wants done. Because I'll tell you, I got my citizenship. I'm just going to I'm going to cite it as an example. I got my citizenship in Barbados in 2016, I think, right? And I, right.
It was like saying came out as a tad late.
No, well, even if it was late, let me explain the process.
Kimar said that. Go ahead, Jermaine. Let's go on.
I'm purposely going to explain this process. Up to the age of 16 years old, I was illegal in Barbados. All right. When I actually went to go to the Barbados Community College, I was told that it was only by the grace of God and by the goodness of both the principal of St. Michael's School and Christchurch Boys School that I was allowed to remain in school in Barbados, because realistically, I was not being in school, given that I'm not a national in this country, and I had no form of legal status in this country. So through officials from Ministry of Education, they assisted me in getting immigrant status. The process after immigrant status is that you have to have immigrant status for 7 years, and then you can apply for permanent residence. All right. And after you have permanent residence for 7 years, you can apply for citizenship by registration in Barbados. All right.
Now, 14 years then basically.
Right. Yeah. So, and in between that time, each one of those processes take 2 years to actually go through by the immigration department. So it takes some time to get anything done. All right. David Thompson came into office in 2008. All right. And in one of his speeches, he said that it is his belief that anybody who's in Barbados for more than 10 years ought to be allowed to go and apply for citizenship and get citizenship in this country. All right. Now, when I heard Mr. Thompson said that, I said, well, good. I ain't gonna listen to them fools at the immigration department no more. I can afford to say, so no, because I get my passport and everything. All right. But the reality is that when I went down to the immigration department and I went to the actual immigration offsite front desk, I said, look, I've come to apply for my citizenship in Barbados. They said to me, what status do you have right now? I said, I have immigrant status. I said, no, sir. The process is that you have to do 7 years and then this, and then you come back. I said, no. The Prime Minister of Barbados got on national television and said that anybody who in this country for more than 10 years should get citizenship. That is his view, and that is what he intends to do. I said, no, the challenge for you is that you are a civil servant and you don't follow what the Prime Minister is saying. So regardless of if you like the policy or you agree with it, or if you have gotten it, by virtue of the fact that the Prime Minister of Barbados, who's the head of government, said it, it becomes a policy for me. So I am staying here and I'm applying for citizenship in Barbados. I applied for citizenship. At first there was some pushback, but you know what you guys said? Just see what happens. The reality is that the politician and the policymaker was ahead of what the system was doing. The system was forced to catch up. So I am saying to you, Firhaana, that we need some bold and progressive people who will say, listen, Brown, this is what's going to happen. And you will be amazed that once that happens, imagine if the Prime Minister of Barbados came out tomorrow morning and all of the policy initiatives that you guys are calling for, she said, you know what, effective Monday morning, A, B, C, and D will be done. I can guarantee you that the civil servants and those in the administrative arm who will tell you that this is the policy and this is what happens and all that, overnight, that whole system would be broken down and they would find a way to accommodate what the head of government has actually said should be happening.
Firhaana, you want to respond to Jeremy?
No, if anybody else has any comments.
I don't have any. Well, I mean, I understand the bureaucracy and I understand Jeremy calling for young people to be in the policy chairs and being in parliament. I don't see he being in parliament or being in policy chair. So I think
That's
he
too
need to
radical.
lead you take your advice up and roll with it. And for another, before we wind down,
Yeah,
I
that's it.
think this person dialed Katrina. Person got a real love for Jermaine. Good lord.
No,
um,
she understands him probably.
yeah, he
But
probably.
what,
Go ahead.
what I wanted to say is that even as we beginning to wrap up shortly, that this discussion is just the tip of the iceberg. But what it has brought out is that there are some people who say that young people are not concerned about any issues in the country, but that's clearly not the case. Where you have Firhaana and her group and the other number of youth organizations that are rallying behind a cause. It is important to understand that causes mobilize people, whether
Mhm.
they're in environmental causes, whether they're causes about domestic violence or whatever. A cause usually mobilizes people and motivate people to get up and say something, and then the next step will be to do something. So this whole process is important. I do believe one thing I can say about this administration so far, based on what we've seen, is that they take comments seriously.
I
Just as
agree.
how you said, Kimar, people watch this program. We are guaranteed that politicians or those close to politicians watch this program. You can be guaranteed that people, when you make your comments on social media through your organization, that ministers and other officials see the comments. So one thing I can say about this administration is that they listen to comments
Yes.
and then they try to bring the necessary changes. That is what I would
If
say
I
at
could go
this
back
point.
to something that was said earlier, I think probably you hit on it, but I just want to say there's nothing wrong with striking when the iron is hot.
True.
There's nothing wrong with that. As an advocate, you sometimes talk about these situations over and over and over and over. But somebody who is not an advocate may see the situation or experience the situation which you've been advocating for so long. And you come out and you say, hey, we've been talking about this forever. And and I'm sorry that it has to take the exposure of a young person. I'm sorry it has to come to the fact that she becomes the victim. But in more instances, she can hold her head high and say it's because of
She's a
her
catalyst, more on the
situation,
catalyst.
that this issue would or this abuse would no longer happen to anybody that follows behind her. You understand? And
I
and, and so
agree.
that's the positive that has to be taken from this whole situation, that we condition this young lady to think that, you know what, it's only because of you know that, and it's only because of the situation you're in that the plight has been showing up. Firhaana, you want to wind down? You can wind down for us. Bring any solution. What you guys up to? Whatever the case. Kimar, you want to say
I want to
something
make
for
a
Firhaana?
quick. I want to make a quick. Sorry, comment before you
Go
hand
ahead.
over to Firhaana. Right. Um. I think the issue brought greater discussion to bear. Um. Definitely gotta pay some attention to how we are treating young ladies coming up in the country. I think that the law needs to do its part in terms of taking the recommendations to ensure that this is more of a reform process instead of
Mm,
a old colonial tear down, break the spirit of the people kind of process.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Um, when we're finished with the girls, we need to take a look over at what's going on in the boys' school as well, and then
I
we
would
have
hope
to
that they
take
would do it simultaneously, though, Kimar. Honestly.
yes, I was hoping, but I am not seeing any discussion going on as over on the boys' side. But um, I think that the situation has caught the attention of too many people to try to take the focus away from the girls because it's in fact about the young lady and what happened to young lady. So um after the situation is made satisfactory to the hurting victims involved, which would be the young lady and parent and any other person who may love that child. I think out of respect, you should try to handle the situation as quickly and as professional as possible, and then seek to get on to saving other lives. Could be of the other young ladies, or could be to the young boys, and then after the young boys, then we need to take a step further into hardcore criminal justice reform at the level of the adult.
Okay. Firhaana?
Yeah, just to reiterate that, we want to keep the conversation going as much as possible. And you can continue, just for viewers, you can continue to look at some of the messages that we've put out, some of the information that we've shared at You Report Barbados on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Send us your questions. We're very receptive to that. Anything that you may be unclear about, and we seek to answer some of those questions. We recently put out 2 videos around the legal aspects, so the wandering law as well as the bail and the age of criminal responsibility. So feel free to go and look at those videos. They're quite informative. And just keep being a part of the conversation and the change. It's only going to happen when more of us come together and show and share and be critical in how we think and perceive solutions and so on. So definitely that would be our call to action.
Thanks, Firhaana. I said we definitely support what you guys do here. That's why we Kimar Stewart, when he brought it to us, we thought to carry it because it is important. All of us, with the exception of I think it's Simon Dominicarna, our young people. Sorry, right, Simon? I did
That's
joke,
the list.
right. I think you gone by the UN 35.
Yeah, I missed that. I passed a
You
couple.
passed
That's
that.
been a couple years. That's
There we
legit.
go. But we generally, seriously, we're all young people, and it would be foolish of us, for any of us here, to think that this particular circumstance with this young lady did not impact us. It even in our thinking that if it was my child, what would have happened, and a lot could go through your mind when you see the abuse and when you hear the abuse.
True.
A lot could go through one mind, and not only just about advocating it and all of that is, but like, if I could probably be abused myself too. And so a lot of things like these go. But one of the things I also want to be in our minds is that we look at this institution of GIS, whether it be for both the boys and the girl, and we see this as a positive institution to reforming our young people, because it is a needed institution. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. It is a much needed institution that is for reform, for change, for whatever. But I think that the work needs to be done. I think that we need to all band together. The right people needs to be in place to be able to bring a successful turnaround of our boys and our girls, so that they don't be a repeat of a system. So I'm glad to see the group. I'm glad to see you guys championing it. Whether or not this person think that it's just a moment, whether it's for the moment or not, in a lot of circumstances, the point is this cause has a voice right now, and it will continue to have a voice until then, until it has to stop, or until the whole situation is fixed. And I hope you guys don't give up at any point of time till you get everything across that you guys need to get. Continue pressuring government, continue pressuring the minister, continue pressuring the civil servant, continue championing whatever you have to champion to basically get this arrested. I can tell you from personal experience dealing with the homeless, I championed, and you guys know I still champion. I didn't believe I arrived because I have a building downtown that can hold 90 people. There's still a fight, there's still a cause out there, and there's still the fact I want to see Barbados rid of homelessness, and myself and my team. So I would implore you guys to continue, fight, bring the solutions to the table, champion, get that seat at that table. That has to be the key right now for you guys. Get at Jeremy, so I must agree. Try to get at the policy level, and get out there what you get for what you guys need to get for. Anything that you want to add? Okay. So we just want to thank you guys. Thank you, Michelle, for the great show. Thank you, everyone, for the comments. It was everybody said it was a very informative show. So thank you, Firhaana, because you brought the zest to this here. So thank you for coming. Thank you, Sir Kimar Stewart, for reaching out to you. I want to thank Jermaine Beckford, the host, and also Simon Aline. I want to ask everybody that is on right now to please go to the page, like us, follow us. The DeBrief TV show is growing. People are loving it. Thanks for Kimar again for pushing us to come back out. Because
Thank you very much, Kimar.
People are
Yeah,
enjoying these discussions. And I don't want you to be a stranger on this show. Whenever you guys have something doing, whenever you guys want things,
share
please
with us.
share it with us, and we'll put it out there. If you want to come back and say hi, thank God for the technology. So you just have to pop in and say, hey guys, we're doing something. you know, and that is good. I want to thank all the viewers, all the persons that comment. Please like, share us. I want to say to you, please follow the COVID protocol, mask up, sanitize, wash your hands, keep a 6 feet distance, follow the government rules. And, you know, I would encourage anybody, if you want to as well, get vaccinated, protect yourself, protect your family. And you know, it's good to see Kimura Stewart in a red shirt.
Hey, hey, hey,
I just
hey.
joking.
I look at the Elmo. Look at Elmo again, boy.
I have money back, girl.
Elmo.
I have money
I'm
back
on
again.
Batman.
Today, we gonna pay us in the street for these advertisements here. These advertisements here, books says, you trying to bring back la. You know, there's
Elmo's Mirth, Kimar's Mirth.
right. So we just want to thank everybody.
Thank you, Firhaana.
Thank you, Barbados.
Thank you very
No
much,
problem.
Firhaana.